everyone. I know I promised everyone another bourbon review a long time ago, and I asked if you liked it to subscribe and watch for more videos. Well, I'm finally getting around to it. Another Everyman's bourbon review. For this review, I brought my friend Steve Strong in. Now, me being an everyman, I'm just trying to bring forth bourbon to the bourbon community of what a non-expert would say. But Steve has been in the bar business probably since what, you were a teenager?
I've been in the bar business for about 18 years at this
Yeah.
point. 2005, I started in New York City, actually. So
Yeah, so since he's such a young guy, he started when he was like 12.
yeah.
So anyway, if you want to tell the folks watching the video a little bit about yourself and your experience in the bar world.
Yeah, so basically I've been in the bar business since 2005. I started in the city as a bar back and a busser. And over the years, I worked from fine dining up to what I consider gastropub or mid-level bartending, which is kind of right underneath like the cocktail bar, mixology kind of realm. And so now I work at a local pub. I try to take all of my expertise and take the cocktails that we have and kind of punch them up a little bit. But yeah, I've been doing it, for almost 20 years now. I love what I do. Making drinks and tasting different cocktails is one of my favorite things. Me personally, I love gin. Gin is the spirit I guess I would pick. But obviously we're here for bourbon. And bourbon is something that I got into probably, I would say 5 or 6 years ago. I originally started drinking scotch when I got into, I guess, like what I would call the old man.
3 hours later.
Yeah, I definitely, when it comes to a bar setup like this, I believe that you should have a variety of different things, not only for you, but for guests if you're hosting, to give people the option, what they want to choose. And it's also a good talking point too,
Sure.
Stuff that may surprise people. You go, oh yeah, I got that for $30, and they go, really? And then maybe they drink something like an Angel's Envy and they're not wowed by it. They realize that's $70, $80. They go, wow, you can get this for $70, $80. It doesn't drink as good as something that's cheaper.
So yeah, I picked up this bottle of Hill Rock, and I asked the guy, I said, what do you know about Hill Rock? And he said, well, there used to be 2 other, vintages or whatever, mixes, whatever other nomenclature, I don't know, right? Because there can be 5 different, 5 different, it could be Hill Rock, but it'd have 5 different, whatever, I don't know, weeded or aged statements or mash statements or, alcohol content, right? He said this is the only one that seemed to sell, so he kept it.
So as far as I know, this is their front-running brand. This is the one that, when I brought up to Hill Rock, this is the one that was in my mind. There's so many small batch, there's so many different, like you said, there's so many varieties of the same thing that you can get lost in the bourbon world just in a particular distillery.
Yeah.
But this is their front runner. Hill Rock is just a beautiful blend. It's very smooth. Obviously, the bottle is very sexy. So just even on the shelf alone, you look at it and you go, "Wow, I want to drink that. What's in that?" Because it looks like they're selling you a decanter, but it's you'll even see the cork itself too. They didn't skimp on it. I mean,
Yeah, I've had corks break off in bottles before.
The color of this is really pretty, as you can see. It's a nice caramel color. It's clear, which is clean. You definitely don't want to be buying any bourbon that has any debris. Most bourbon should be filtered out, 100%. But you can tell the color has a nice little yellow to it. It's brown. That very caramel color. The smell even.
I smell honey.
Yeah.
So, I know sometimes, right, you talk about a nose and a smell on, bourbon. What's the alcohol statement on that? Because I got a lot of, obviously you're evaporating alcohol, so you're going to smell it.
So this looks like it's 46.3% alcohol per volume at a 750 milliliter bottle. This is also made in the Hudson Valley.
Which we are in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I believe it's made in and around the Gardner area. The nose is smooth. You get a little bit of honeyness to it. I like the smell. I could smell this and feel good.
Like I almost smell like a
Cheers.
Red Delicious apple out there.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. So, people sometimes talk about chewy bourbon. I feel like there's some chewiness to this. It's got a little bit of a thickness. It's not thin at all.
Yeah, it's very viscous. When you first drink it, you feel that it's on your tongue. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you feel it kind of like coating, and that's where that honey smell that you get is interesting because it almost has a little bit of a sappiness to it.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the heat, right? So sometimes with the higher alcohol bourbons, this one's not even that high, right? You said it's 46 by volume?
Yeah, 46 by volume.
So that's not even a high alcohol content. Sometimes the heat is a little much. I prefer my bourbon over the rocks with a little bit of melt. I like to let it melt, let a little water get into it. And we're going to try that next. But, there is some spiciness to this, and I would imagine this has a good age statement on it. I did not check the age statement or if it even has one on there, but it tastes mature. Sometimes you taste bourbon, it tastes like corn whiskey, right? Because it just didn't age long or didn't age properly. But there's a lot going on here. I would say that some people like to put buzzwords out there.
That too.
They're just making stuff up.
That too.
Right? They think that something's there and it's not. And every man his own. You know what I mean? You're always welcome to come by the Freddie T bar and taste some for yourself and see what you think. You think we should open that up with a little water?
Yeah, let's do that. So you have.
So I have this. It's companion water. I picked this up when I was working in Danbury, Connecticut. They had it at their liquor store in the liquor store in the bourbon section, and apparently, right, Kentucky's like the home of bourbon, right? It's Kentucky lime water, like they have aquifers, I think they're called.
Yeah.
That's why the water in Kentucky is very good for bourbon. So this water is specifically for bourbon. And like I said, I like my bourbon opened up. Even my lower alcohol ABV, I like drinking it, but straight is a little bit much for me. I like to open up just with a little drop of water, right? And if you're going to tell me that you put an eye drop worth of water in an ounce of bourbon and it's going to change the flavor profile, I'm going to have to call you on that. I'm not sure about that. What's your thoughts on that?
3 hours later.
I'd like you to pour me a little more.
You would like more.
Because I actually, I drank a little more, I think, than you did.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you to give me a splash of water. Now, when I say a splash, I want like half a cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do the drop because that's who I am.
Okay.
Because I feel that when it comes to adding something like a mixing water Old Limestone, which is something that I was not familiar with until Freddie brought it up to me right before we started filming. I've always known that if you were to add anything to a straight bourbon, and you'd either want to do a drop of just water or a drop of saline water that has a little bit of salt, because salt really...
That's interesting. So usually when I add water to my bourbon, it's Beacon's Finest from the Beacon Water Department. Big ups to my people over there.
Yeah.
So when I put a nose on it now, I smell the same stuff. I got apples and honey, but it's less intense.
Wow. You know what? That mixing water actually pulled some notes out. I was not expecting that for a drop or two. I looked at it as, the dropping of the water. I kind of look at it as kind of hokey, but but this actually, it made it stronger.
There's always like some kind of aftertaste that's left in bourbon. It's more pronounced in some and not less than others. And it's kind of like a mineral taste. I don't know how to describe it. It's not like any food item that I've had before. It's kind of almost like a sour taste, but not. Sour is not the right word for it. I don't know how to describe it. I taste it a lot more when I put the water in it. I taste that a lot in Evan Williams products. I feel like they have that. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a spice that's not that great.
Well, I think when they're finishing their bourbons, there's certain ways to cleanse the bourbon from all the processes, so you really just get the spirit behind. Some of them don't filter it out as well as others.
It could be the rye that's in the mash too, because I don't actually know what rye tastes like. The only rye in a spirit I've had really is bourbon. I only drank in rye once. Maybe that's what I'm tasting is the rye.
So rye traditionally is always going to be spicier. This is going to change a little bit. Obviously, it's going to water it down. It's going to cool it, which is going to make it easier to drink. It's going to change the color because it's going to dilute pretty fast. Cheers. Salute.
So to me, it's a lot like the watered sample that we took, watered tasting. It's a little colder. I prefer a little cold temperature on my bourbon. You know, I like it when it's a little cooler. I think temperature-wise, kind of combats the heat you get from the alcohol.
See, if I'm gonna drink something on the rocks, especially bourbon or scotch, I'm gonna want it to be summertime. I like the warmth that the spirit provides. You know, that's why traditionally stouts and beer and bourbons and scotches are drank during the winter because they warm you up. The richness of them kind of like sticks to your bones. Where in the winter, or sorry, rather in the summer and spring, you go to gin and vodka, tequila. They're clear. They don't have the same level of viscosity. They're not as thick, and they just present different flavors that are more accustomed to that season. That's where you start to drink IPAs, stuff with citrus in it, yada yada yada. You know, so if I'm drinking stuff like this in the wintertime, I'm gonna want it. Me personally, I want it to be warm. I want it to be straight. I want it to be neat because I want to feel that warmth. I want my chest to open up. You know, the cold is nice. It also makes it a lot easier to go down.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get through quite a few more glasses of bourbon on the rocks than I think you would need, which could present a problem. A fun problem, but a problem. You know what I mean?
I like drinking bourbon.
That. Mm-hmm. You know the way you drink that compared to the one.
Any left in there?
Yeah, you guys.
I don't know if that's gonna help. So again, it's almost the same as when I add a little water to it. It almost had like a rye profile. I lose some of the sweetness. And you know, for me, my favorite part of bourbon is the sweet bourbons. I like when it tastes like brown sugar and honey and dried fruits. I get some of that here. It's not as pronounced. I'm getting more of almost like a rye vibe out of this, especially once I add the water. What are your thoughts?
I probably agree with you. It's definitely on the lighter side as far as like the sweetness is concerned. I would consider it bourbon that kind of floats somewhere in the middle. It has a little sweetness. Can fall a little bit on the peppery side. Hillrock does make a really good rye, so I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure they clean their stills and all that, but I'm curious if there's any little bit of cross contamination that makes their bourbon just a little bit more peppery than others. But yeah, I wouldn't consider this a sweet bourbon. It's definitely middle of the road as far as sweetness is concerned compared to spiciness. But I like it. I think it's a bourbon that deserves to be on the higher rating scale. It's definitely worth its bottle cost, in my opinion. But I wouldn't know if for the common man this would be a daily drinker.
So for me, the price point of $100 is okay for a good bourbon. I feel like there's $50, $60, $70, $80 bourbons have a similar profile that I think I would go for if I was budget conscious. I think it's a good bourbon. So I think it's a little expensive for what I'm getting, just a little bit, right? I think, you know, a price point of $80 might put me there, but I don't think at $100 this is something that I would go for again. I like to put it in stock. I will, you know, bring people over and I'll have them taste it. So final thoughts, and also as a sipper versus a mixer.
So
right, you don't ever want to mix a more expensive bourbon, right?
So,
it's almost like a waste.
Yeah.
Right?
So as final thoughts, I would put this as a high rated bourbon. I think some of the price you're talking about goes into the look of the bottle, because it has more of an ornate look. So I think some of that price you're getting is because they're kind of like giving you a free decanter essentially. I don't think this is a bourbon that you would mix unless you were going to do a really nice Manhattan. But I think this is more on the sipping side. This is something that you would, hang out around a campfire with your friends and drink. But definitely, for sure, not a mixer. I mean, it can be. Anything can be a mixer, right? But generally, the rule of thumb is the higher price tag on it, the less likely are you to mix it. It's kind of like insulting it. But Manhattan is a boozy drink. You're not adding too much to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
right.
as long as you get a high level sweet vermouth with some nice bitters, it's gonna be an amazing Manhattan for $25.
Yeah, maybe we'll try that after we stop filming.
But final thoughts is I think it's a great bourbon. It falls in the middle for me as far as like I said, spiciness and sweetness. I like it overall, drinking it neat and on the rocks. Obviously the rocks for me, it creates a little bit more of a lethality because it goes too smooth. And I like the way it looks. It has a very nice presentation on the shelf or on a bar. It feels good in your hands when you pick it up. I love the color. It's great. Hill Rock is great.
Yeah, I think Coquito might be in this later on. It's that time of year.
Coquito, he makes a great Coquito, guys. I got my first bottle from Freddie last year, and it's probably one of the best that I've had.
Thank you, Steve.
What? You don't even drink, but the camera guy. But no, it's he makes a great Coquito.
All right. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for coming
my
over
pleasure,
and
of
helping me
course.
out. Steve and I go back a few years. We're Dungeons and Dragons buddies, but
Nerds.
So yeah, kind of nerds, but I'm pretty tough. So if you come at me,
Yeah.
anyway, thanks for coming in. I appreciate everything. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. I think I got a little something in here.